So, a question I'd love to ask meeting planners: how long does the energy and the enthusiasm, the commitment after your big kickoff meeting last? And the idea should be that we go to a meeting and set a foundation, and then we continue to elevate momentum and energy and commitment and drive throughout the year. It shouldn't wane after 30 days or 90 days.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. We'll definitely get the skinny on reaching that one big goal: no more bad events. I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted, easy-to-use, full-service online platform for finding, connecting with, and hiring the best keynote speakers, hosts, and presenters in the world. With the deepest catalog of professionals available through the eSpeakers marketplace, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. For more information, go to espeakers.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of No More Bad Events. I know we have a lot of new listeners today because Ryan Estis has some reach, not only in the speaker community, but in the event world in general. He's highly respected and an in-demand keynote speaker, known to inspire his sales and executive leadership audiences with insights to help initiate change and performance. And he's on the show today. I've known Ryan for quite a while now, just recently, somewhat personally, as a friend and a colleague. But around 15 years ago, I introduced him at a meeting, and I was so impressed. He knows what he's talking about. He has passion and enthusiasm for implementing change in people, and he does it so well. You can hear it in his delivery, but you can also hear it in his content. And we talk a little bit about that because currently he is one of the co-founders of Impact 11, a speaker development and training community. It's a membership-based organization that has everything from one-on-one consulting with speakers to mastermind groups to a component where they help people craft and coach them on their keynotes. But the reason Ryan is on the show today is because they also have a live event element. They have something called a speaker boot camp. And we talk a little bit about the speaker boot camp. I actually was there. I was invited as a guest last year. And it was great to watch Ryan speak with his colleagues, with contemporaries, with the speaker community, and share his knowledge about not only about speaking, but what it takes to become an effective communicator. And he also is responsible, along with the other co-founders, Josh Linkner, Seth Madison, and Peter Sheehan, for putting on these live events, these live speaker boot camps, which have to go over well. You have a very jaded audience. These are speakers who have been to tons of conferences. These are people who are trying to up their game. So there's some high expectations, and they do want to, at these live events, be able to have an impact. This is a time where they get to speak to their audience. And Ryan and I, we talk about that when you have your audience in front of you, you need to have impact. You need to have some change. You also need to create community. And we talk a little bit about how important it is to bring people together, more so now than ever, because that's what people are yearning for. Yes, community is so important, and we appreciate you being part of the No More Bad Events community, even if today is just your first time listener. We invite you to go back and listen to some past episodes. If you like this episode, definitely follow us, and you can hear some upcoming episodes, whether you're a speaker or someone else in the event industry, anywhere along the line, there's always good tidbits, always good wisdom to pick up from this podcast. And you're definitely going to hear some great wisdom from Ryan Estis today on the show. So sit back, relax. We're going to have a great conversation. You'll hear what I was talking about that passion, that enthusiasm for not only speaking, but putting on a great event. So let's talk about a little bit about Impact 11 for the people who don't know what that is. I guess a good way to describe it, it's a training and development community that has everything.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a community of speakers that come together. There is a speaker boot camp. You just had one, I think, last month. Let me ask you about that boot camp. How did it go? And what personal experience do you think you brought to the planning to assure this event had impact and was a great success? Because you're involved in that. You're one of the 4 founding members.
Yeah, one of the owners of the business. Well, I think it went great. I think it was our best event ever. I think one of the things that, we've been really good about is diligent in planning to make sure that, the event experience continues to expand. And to me, it's a couple of things when we continue to build off of the previous event. So one of the first things is we dissect an event immediately after it ends. So the core team stays an extra day in whatever city the event was in to debrief, deconstruct, and it really is an audit. What went well? What did we miss? What did we notice? And certainly, what do we want to replicate? One, but what could be improved upon next time around? So I think that sort of diligent kind of real-time awareness and planning is one consideration. And, just surveying getting feedback from the attendees and the participants and understanding, was it consistent with their expectations? What did they love? What didn't they love? What would they like to see differently? And so we keep building and iterating the experience. And, one of the great things about it is we have community members that come to everything we do. I mean, they come back again and again and again. So, feedback is a gift. And I think we're building our programming in lockstep with our community. So we're not doing it in a silo as an executive team who thinks this is what it should be. We've got 100 members in this expanding community of thought leaders. And we really are building a sense of place and a sense of community together. And I think it's been good from that perspective.
What was something that you had planned on doing at the event, this last event, that you thought in your mind this would go over well, but maybe didn't translate as well? Like what was going on in the debrief meeting? Because I know that you are a big proponent of feedback after a meeting, figuring it out afterwards, and you live that. That's what you've been doing with Impact 11 in their meetings.
Yeah, look, I think one of the challenges we're serving in one event a community or a group of participants in a particular event with a very diverse range of needs and experiences. And so I think one of the things we're realizing is that in order to further provide customization and meet the specific needs of a certain demographic, we're going to have to begin to do some tracks and do some blended learning and deliver some things that are opt-in and maybe opt-out based on, what that particular participant is coming for and needs the most. So I think that's been great insight and awareness. And then, of course, we have to continue to iterate the programming accordingly.
Yeah. So I guess you're saying maybe have some options, some curated experiences that they can have. I mean, are you thinking more in terms of different tracks, in terms of different meetings, or within the meeting, maybe more breakouts and workshops?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do breakouts and workshops and tracks, and we're going to have to give people some optionality. The second thing is, I think one of the core reasons that people come to these events is beginning to evolve. And I think people are coming as much for the camaraderie and community as they are for the content. It's got a very reunion element that's starting to unfold. And
that's the whole thing with the community, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, people are dropping in once a quarter to reconnect with their friends and work on their craft and build new relationships. And we've got, the bureau partners participating. And so it really is become sort of this industry hub of professional development and connection and relationships and support. And so being thoughtful about how we balance the content and what's being delivered and the experience and the opportunity to facilitate meaningful connections. So I think getting that right. So we're evolving it, where we've got things like yoga and HIIT workouts in the morning, and we're involving more social time in the afternoon and evening. So we're really trying to foster that communal sense of giving people who do this business a sense of place where they can come and be together.
Now, do you think that philosophy translates to any company that's having an event? Should they also consider that?
Yeah, I think it's more important than ever, particularly in this post-pandemic world where hybrid work is the new reality. I mean, I can't tell you the number of events I've been to this year where a meeting planner or executive stakeholder said to me, half of our people have never met, or a third of our people have never been to a company event before. And so we're coming together in a way. And I think there is a much greater responsibility to foster that type of connection, that type of community building at these events, because people aren't going back and going to work in proximity anymore. I'm at home. I assume you're probably at home right now. And, half of corporate America is. And so that actually evolved, I think, what the purpose of what an event can provide in terms of ROI and relationship building.
That's really interesting to think about. Because of the pandemic and having us being so isolated and working remotely, that this is the time to come together with some community. And it's not just the typical networking and connecting that you normally see. It's a sense of being part of something and actually feeling that.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, so there's a couple things. I mean, one, we are more disconnected and isolated and separate. The way we're working is shifted. And I think people's expectations of what work provides has shifted. It's no longer about achievement and stability. I think people are looking to the workplace to provide more meaning and fulfillment and connection. And so to support that, the onus and responsibility is on leaders to continue to think about ways to evolve and connect people, to your point, to something larger than themselves. And it's hard to do that when we're not in a place. And so I think the event and the offsite has taken on much greater significance in many respects to fostering that sense of community and connection.
Yeah, I mean, people have talked about how, are events going to continue to happen as often as they have in the past because of the pandemic? And you're making a great case for we almost need it. We need to come together. We
need it, and people want it. I mean, that's the other thing. People want to come together. They want to connect. They want to go on the trip. They want to go to dinner with their colleagues. I mean, there's an innate human desire for connection. And if you're looking for those kinds of relationships in the workplace, or looking for that kind of meaning and fulfillment and support, and also development, how critical development is in terms of, our engagement and our satisfaction and our well-being, people want to feel like they're part of it. And so, I think the event not only takes on greater significance, but I actually see a greater impetus for coming together in these types of retreats, offsites, conferences at more frequent intervals to offset some of the innate challenges that we're experiencing as work changes.
100%. I believe that's definitely true. I know you help companies discover their core strengths so that they can have a more meaningful impact in the world. How can companies make an impact at their own sales conference? I mean, what would you like to see from leaders now at these conferences with this new shift that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, we're taking a page from the playbook that I preach about at these events. I mean, I think the events I certainly think there's an opportunity to create alignment. So I think corporate leaders setting a vision, connecting everybody to the strategy, the future, I think that's really, really important. Number two, obviously there's an opportunity for learning. So learning, development, support, I think is really important. And I think particularly in sales conferences, there's a greater impetus or need for that. And that's certainly what we're getting asked to come and provide as a partner in some of these events. I think the third one is that real sense of human connection, is giving people some space to work on some of their own work independent of being lectured or talked to. And then also that opportunity to create relationship building and connection. So, to the degree that you can foster those things in a sort of inclusive, supportive, exciting way, I think there's an opportunity there to get a real return on this investment. So.
I think this is an exciting time. I think you've preached and spoke about for years about emotional intelligence, about leaders needing to be vulnerable, to really connect with their teams, to get the most out of their teams. And I think now is the time that people can really take it in. It's not like it's, some sort of, new age kind of philosophy. This is life now. This is where we're at.
Well, it's because it maps to what people want. The expectations of the role of the leader has fundamentally changed. I mean, people are looking for leaders to view them as a whole person and support them, not just in the context of achievement at work, but in the totality of their life. So, the role of manager and leader is evolving to be more akin to a coach, and in many respects, a life coach. So really supporting people at their place of highest need, understanding where they want to be, not only today or in the year ahead, but 3 years now, 5 years from now, then being an advocate and an ambassador to help people become more of who they're capable of being. I always say, leadership isn't a job, it's a responsibility. And it's not about us, it's about helping other people become the best they're capable of being. But, you said something like, this idea of connection, like leaders need to connect. In order to connect with others, you have to connect with yourself. And you don't flip a switch and become vulnerable and more empathetic and more human-centered. It's a process, and it's a process that starts with you. I'm fond of saying today, the leadership mandate is not to start with why. It starts with you first. And if you want to connect in a new way with others, you got to connect to yourself. So leaders that have the impetus to look inward, to develop a little bit more self-awareness, self-confidence, and humility simultaneously, I think have a more human-centric view of the world, of their teams, of their people, and are able to connect in a way that people covet today. And when you start with self, connect with others, then I think you're better positioned to make the future happen.
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about connection in my keynote as well. And I stumbled upon that whole idea of connecting with yourself. I mean, that's what we're really talking about, is being present and emotionally open in the moment with others. So we have a lot of event professionals, obviously, who listen to the show. How can they become better leaders? How can they become more open? What does that look like for them?
I think one of the things is, it's doing the work that you just said. It's developing some self-awareness. I'm a big fan of visioning. So just a beautiful question or invitation to anybody that's listening that wants to grow as a leader. Who do you want to be? And what kind of impact you have. Another question I love is, how do you want to be remembered by the people you work with? And getting clarity around that. One of the exercises we take leaders through during executive coaching is helping them establish a personal leadership vision. You have an aspirational vision of who you are as a leader, the kind of impact you want to have, how you want to be remembered, really getting clarity around that, articulating that, and then looking at your day-to-day. What habits or skills and competencies need to develop? How are you going to sort of go on that further journey to become the leader that you're capable of being? And a big part of leadership to me, it's about learning and listening. So stay a student, continue to study and ask a lot of questions. Get curious about other people. Instead of trying to be interesting, get interested. And I think the closer you can get to people, the more you understand who they are, what they want, I think you're better positioned to lead in a way that serves your community, your event, your company going forward.
Yeah, it feels like that could even apply to the actual meetings, having a vision for what you want your meeting to look like. I know you believe all meetings should have impact. I don't know if that was something that coincided with Impact 11, but I know you talk a lot about meetings that have impact.
That's right. They should have a vision, right? Like, what does success look like? And look, I'm a former chief revenue officer, so I used to run sales meetings. And it's funny, we were talking to another chief revenue officer today. He said, my biggest frustration with these meetings is we get all excited when we're there. We're in Las Vegas, and then everybody gets back and starts digging out of email and getting back into their old routine, and nothing happened. And that's not a good meeting. That's just a party in Las Vegas, man. Right. And so, the other thing that happens is you think about what's the cycle where the meeting or the motivation begins to wane. And it's a question I love to ask meeting planners. How long does the energy and the enthusiasm, the commitment after your big kickoff meeting last? And the idea should be that we go to a meeting and set a foundation, and then we continue to elevate momentum and energy and commitment and drive throughout the year. It shouldn't wane after 30 days or 90 days. And so, you kind of have to begin with the end in mind. What do you want to accomplish at the meeting? Make sure you do deliver the experience that your people need and want. But then how do you leverage the ROI of that and sustain or build that momentum throughout the course of the year? And if you do that, then the meeting had impact.
I know, that you are passionate about having, as a speaker, you want to change lives, you want to inspire action, but you also want meetings to be able to do that. It should be a catalyst for change. You once said, I read something where you said, truly great meetings change lives. What does that look like?
A meeting changed my life. I mean, I was sort of a wayward, flailing, struggling sales rep early in my career. Yeah, I wasn't good. I mean, I was probably to be honest, I was on the verge of getting fired. And I haphazardly ended up at this networking. The only reason I went to this meeting was because they offered a free happy hour, truth be told.
Oh, I did that in Houston back in the early 80s. Yeah, that's how I supported my eating habits were free happy hours.
Yeah, you're a broke kid, not making any sales, about to get fired. It's like, all right, free buffalo wings, mozzarella sticks, and beer, and I have to go listen to some speaker. I'm in, man. Like, that was it. And a guy by the name of Jim Rohn took the stage and completely transformed my life in 3 hours, And I mean, that was sort of a defining moment where I was just provided with, I think, probably a powerful set of tools, but in some ways permission to become more of who I was capable of being. And that set me down a path. And I was forever changed. And I've never stopped learning. But I believe that when people are ready, if you meet people where they are, that in an hour, you can at least be a catalyst to get somebody to commit to taking the action they need to become more of who they're capable of being. So, it's words and ideas, man. That's what changes the world. You bring people together, you get them to align and commit to a worthwhile cause. You give them the tools, connections, relationships, support, and inspiration to go on this further journey together for themselves and for the good of the organization. Ultimately, that's what a good meeting should inspire. It should be a catalyst to unleash the potential around a worthy cause. That's certainly the vision I have for our meetings at Impact 11. I hope we're in many ways serving the participants, certainly the community. But in the end, what we're able to do is we're able to unleash this group of thought leaders on the world who are better prepared to create impact and help these organizations. And that's worthwhile.
Over this last year, we talked about some of the shifts, some of the changes that have happened in events. People have more of a need for community, for connecting and networking. What are some of the other changes that you may have noticed over this last year with events?
Yeah, look, I also think there's a critical need to navigate change. We're living through a pretty uncertain time. I mean, you look at categories of industry are getting disrupted. There's economic headwinds. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world, competition from everywhere. So, certainly if you're in technology, layoffs are a prominent discussion. We've had, financial market shift and collapse, bubbles burst. I mean, so there's a lot of disruption. I say it feels like, we're in a constant state of change. It feels like we're in a constant state of chaos and crisis. And it's from this thing to the next thing to the next thing. So organizations need support navigating that kind of disruption. I mean, they need to help their teams and their people, effectively manage and mitigate and move through the complexity of what's happening. My business is fairly evenly split between doing sales conferences, so working with go-to-market teams, and working with executive teams or leadership teams. And those are dynamic, constantly changing, challenging times for leaders and sellers. And so getting that support and then getting, everyone's asking, hey, we need this to be actionable. So I deliver, I think, a blended keynote of some education and inspiration, but I've been asked to lean a little bit more heavily into the education because I think people need tools, skills, and answers to really hard questions. And so, I'm happy to deliver that support, but I think it's just a sign of the times that we're living through right now. And I think that's balanced with also the recognition that there's a human connection element to these events that you just simply can't get through Zoom. And so bringing people back to come together and go to dinner and to celebrate progress and to build relationships is a big part of what's happening too.
So when you're coaching executives, you're probably also speaking to them sometimes maybe deliberately or just happens that part of their leadership style is going to eventually translate on stage. What do you try to tell some of these executives to become a better leader on stage, to be able to communicate more effectively with their teams?
Yeah. So number one is, humanize yourself. And one of the best ways to do that is the power of storytelling. So the degree that you can make, I think as an executive, the degree that you can be a little more approachable and human and let people in and tell a personal story, I'm really, really fond of that. I think also starting meetings off with recognition or reinforcement about what's going right. So, there may be challenges in a State of the Union or a progress report, or when you're going through financials or unlocking the 3-year strategy. That's all important, but connect people to the progress. And I also think to the degree that you can foster some sense of connection to, the larger thing that you're solving, that you're working on, that you're contributing to the world. When people can connect their work to something that's meaningful outside of themselves, that's important, it really can serve as a catalyst to galvanize, emotional commitment and alignment. And I think that's a big part of the leader's responsibility. So if you get those few things right, and then keep it simple and be yourself. I think that's always the best advice when you're on stage.
So I know that you can be a master storyteller. I was just showing my brother your the 1 cup of coffee that changed your life, that Goalcast video that went viral.
Changed my life. That's right.
Would you get 20 million of? It's on a bunch of sites. There's probably
it's probably closer to 100 to be honest.
100 million. Yeah, a great story, and I love the way Goalcast is able to augment it with video and music. One of them, they had this very attractive woman as the barista, and it looked like you two were going to be a couple together, right? You've never met that woman. That was stock footage, right?
That's correct. The crazy thing about that is when that first went live and it started to move around, and now it's been translated into 18 languages and shown all over the world. But still, the question that people comment the most on any site in any language on social media is, did those two get married? Yes. And thousands of people wanted to know if out of the Goalcast video, that if I and this sort of fictitious woman actually connected and became a couple, and we didn't. Is the moral of the story. Well, and that wasn't the actual barista, but Goalcast is you want to watch great video editing and production that creates some emotional potency. They have that formula down, man.
I don't know what your relationship status is, but they matched you with someone who you'd look like. We want to see those two people.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Connect.
That's exactly right.
That makes me laugh every time I think about that. Do you have any funny stories that has happened during one of your keynotes? You're working all the time. Something that truly either disastrous happened or something you witnessed while you're on stage?
I'll give you one. I live in Minneapolis, and so US Bank Stadium is the football stadium where the Vikings play, and it's relatively new. And so when it was finished and it was built, like a lot of the football stadiums, so they offer, corporate outings, events. You can, if you're a company, you can go have an event there, and you might not you wouldn't have it in the stadium. They would set up an area like the President's Lounge or whatever, where you might have a conference, and then people can get a tour of the facility in the locker room and run around on the field. And I was speaking at one of these events. It was a corporate event just after the stadium opened, and it was beautiful. We went in, we got a tour, and there were 500 people there. It was all set up right. It was sort of down adjacent to the field. It was really cool setup. You could see the field in the background. And I was about 10 minutes into the talk, and the entire power and lights at the stadium black. And we weren't close enough, so it was really dark in this room. I had no mic, I had no slides. I use media, so no videos. And it's just one of those moments, like nobody knew what to do. And I just decided, I said, I think I'm loud enough to do this. Let me come off the stage and come into the audience, and I'm going to dial up my volume. And I think we're just going to keep soldiering on in the dark. I didn't know what else to do. And everybody clapped and encouraged me to keep going. And so for the next 40 minutes in the dark, I keynoted to 500 people at US Bank Stadium with, no mic, no media, just me and in a pitch black room adjacent to the stadium. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, and I used to do stand-up. I had that happen on stage 2 weekends in a row. Power went out to the point that I thought maybe I might have some powers. Maybe
it was you, right? Yeah,
well, it was 2 weekends in a row, and it happened to me. There's those people who watches stop on them. I felt I had some sort of electrical current going on. So if you were to share one tip with someone who is just entering the industry, I'm talking about from an event professional standpoint, what would that be? What do they need to know now coming into the event world?
I think I would really get close to your participants. I think the more customization and personalization that you can offer, and really brand the event experience. It's not about bludgeoning people with PowerPoint or strategy or 18 hours a day of professional development. Cultivate or curate an experience. Give people blended learning, time to connect, entertainment and hospitality. Use the event as a catalyst to inspire people to want to commit more to something. And we certainly think about that at Impact 11. Who are we serving? What is the brand experience that we want to create? And we want to make it special. We want to curate an experience that makes people want to keep coming back for more. And so I think the expectations of what we get out of an event are changing. We have shorter attention spans. We're more distracted. We're more connected. But we still want to relate. We still want to build relationship. We're social creatures. So the degree that you can blend those things into sort of one seamless experience, I think you'll be on the way to creating some impact. Which, after all, is what a good event is all about.
It's all about impact. I'm inspired right now to go out and put a meeting together. I love this idea of curating experiences, about making connections, having a vision for your meeting, not just what's going on here, but what they're going to be able to take as they leave the meeting. I think meetings are evolving. I think we need them now, as you said, and we talked about more than ever. Let's give a little plug for Impact 11. When's your next event coming up? Where should people go if they want to learn more about it?
Yeah, so I go to impact11.com. Our next live event is in June. It's in Detroit, Michigan, June 11th through June 13th. But, outside of the live event, we call those boot camps. It's sort of a 2 to 3 day sprint through the world of thought leadership and professional speaking. But our community is 24/7, all access all the time. So people are joining the community real time every week, and then, picking and choosing the live experience that they want to attend. So impact11.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn, Instagram, or anywhere else. And if you're interested and want to learn more, the community is growing, and it's a pretty extraordinary group of people. We'd love to have you. So.
Yes, definitely. I love all the guys who are running it, involved in it. And, I went to that boot camp, I think last year, had a great time. So I recommend it to any of the speakers who are listening to this, and even event professionals. Put Impact 11 on your radar, because they do have a connection to everyone in the speaking world. And there's definitely some great benefits and great learning moments from being part of that community. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. It was great to get a chance to actually sit down and talk to you for this amount of time.
That was awesome, Scott. Really appreciate it, man. Take good care.
That's it for now. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.